This is the Vice Minister of Interior Affairs for the West Pacific. Specifically, this is Pro Confederation, as I like to be called. Um, this is a video that's part of a potential series, which is to cover the considerable demand in our, what was it, community interest poll. Yeah, there's a lot of demand for basically information on how to world build, specifically in like people who want to get into like nation states RP or offsite RP or DeviantArt RP, or they want to write by themselves, and they basically want to have some like idea where they want to start. You know what I mean? Like, how do I start working on a culture or like any level? Just like just a beginning step. I've been talking around, asking people, listening, and I am going to give it my best shot for a starting point. I'm open to feedback, criticism, the whole shebang, and let's see where this goes. And hopefully, this is a good start. I know this preamble thing is like a minute long. Yeah. Okay. There are four endpoints, and when I say endpoints, I mean like when you're trying to create like a culture. Okay. There are four ways you end up before you necessarily begin starting. Okay. Um, think of it as like you build an intro. This is the end of the intro, and then there are two paths to the end of that intro. Okay. When that intro is done, you basically have a vague idea what you're looking for, and then you just have to like fill in that vagueness. Okay. So it's like everything's kind of a blur, and you just put glasses on, or you get corrective lenses, or whatever it is you do. Okay. The four endpoints for that intro part, that vagueness, would be replication, what if slash wondering. The third option is expanding and mimicking, and the fourth option is idealization or idealization. There we go. Okay. Replication is basically, let's say you're a writer and you want to write a book, sci-fi, maybe shortly into the future, something that's not exactly fantasy, okay? Anything but fantasy or historic, like alternate history, 10 minutes into the future, 1,000 years into the future, some planet far, far away, stars or whatever. There is, okay, so here are the things you have. Okay, so replication is basically you say, okay, this is what I live in, this is what I experience, this is what I feel. Let's take that and either do a one for one, or we can exaggerate it. It's there's a little bit of tweaking here and there, but it's pretty similar. So, for example, I could take today's America, and I could have a country where there's lots of political infighting, like there is in America, but it's like way worse, or it's slightly better, or slightly worse. I could dial it up, I could dial it down. So basically, you have something that's very similar to what you know, but there are differences. It's just the differences are, they could be many or they could be considerable, but what you have is like 80% what you know. Like 80% America, 90% America. It's like very, very close. Take a bunch of things, you dial up, you dial them down, and it's very much from like a contemporary standpoint. Maybe you might have events in the past that are slightly different, but it's not too much alteration, okay? So replication is like, maybe it might involve like satire or things like that. Just like what you feel and what you experience around you. So like if you live in a bad neighborhood and there's like Nazis around you, then maybe you have like a nation and they're like trying to fight all these Nazis around them. So that's what replication is. Replication is basically what you experience around you, and it's kind of a vague general thing. It might be like the other categories, but it's just an example, okay? So the second category is what if or wondering. What if or wondering is not really necessarily about copying what's around you or trying to do the idealization or the mimicking or the expanding, but it's more like, you're kind of just thinking to yourself, what if something had happened differently? And you don't really want like a specific outcome per se. You're just kind of like going through ideas, and you're thinking and you're curious. What if I took this and I mixed it in with this? What if we had a Star Wars universe, but it behaved more like Star Trek, and then we add a couple other stuff. So you're not quite trying to accomplish something like the other categories, but it's more like you're just kind of like bouncing ideas around. You're trying to make something different and new. You're kind of mixing things together. So you're kind of just curious. Replication might be about being bitter. or maybe comfortable. Either you're comfortable with what's around you, or maybe you're bitter with what's around you, but the what if or wondering is about curiosity. Okay, so the example of that might be, you might ask yourself, well, what if some candidate that you don't really like or hate won the presidency for America? That would be weird. It would be interesting. You're maybe curious about how that would go, and that could be a good way to start a nation. Third one is expanding or mimicking. Expanding or mimicking typically means you take someone else's idea and you add to it. So basically, it's like fan fiction. You're like, what if it was Star Wars, but the Empire fell apart like really, really fast, or maybe there was coups, or the generals were fighting each other, all kinds of things. So it's kind of in that fan fiction kind of area where you take ideas that you've heard of, or books or films, and you kind of mess around with them. The reason why it's mimicking is because you can either copy it and tweak it, or you can copy and add to, or copy and take away from it. But basically, this is the less supposedly creative idea, but it is a way to start. I mean, you can have all kinds of supposed what-if scenarios, but this is less about the whole curiosity thing, or trying to like mess around with maybe history or any number of factors, and it's more about like having fun. And there is a little bit of that, like, you are kind of in your nation. So, you're a huge Star Wars fan, but, you kind of wish this was different, this was different. So there's that. Then there's idolization. Idolization is what I did. It's what a lot of people do. Idolization is where you basically say to yourself, what if the whole country was me? That's basically what I ended up doing. But you could also say, what if the whole country was me 20 years from now on a good day, or something like that. Okay, so maybe the culture thinks the way you do. Maybe it's kind of like, it could be like in your replication, like what you're comfortable with, but there's considerable differences. What if I like this politician? What if this politician was in charge? What if the country had this opinion on these various social issues? What if this event in the past went differently? But it's not about changing the timeline for curiosity, or like expanding fan fiction so much as it's more like you kind of want to create your own thing, but there is a lot of copying things that you like, or things that you were interested in, and so on and so forth. So hopefully there's just some kind of understanding of how this all works. But yeah, to give some examples, idolization is, pro-Confederation, and all the nations that led up to that are basically ideas that I've had. And there is a lot of that so-called expanding and mimicking, where I've taken ideas from other people, but it's like a lot of ideas in one place. And it's not really a what-if kind of thing, because I'm very passionate about what I'm creating. It's not really curiosity. I want to have like a certain image. And you could say there's a fair amount of replication, but there's too much exaggeration, and things are too different and idolized, and also pessimistic for it to really be replication. So it's really weird and interesting. Now you may be asking yourself, what are the two paths? This video is getting way too long. Okay, well, you have top to bottom, and you have bottom to top. Top to bottom is basically what you effectively have is, okay, I want to get to my idealized country, okay? So you say to yourself, okay, that's the end point. 2017, 2130 pro-Confederation. Okay, what do we need to do up to that point to get to pro-Confederation? What events need to happen? What's the starting point? And what things need to happen to create pro-Confederation? Another way you could look at it is you can start from the beginning and you just have stuff happen until you get to pro-Confederation, okay? So the difference between the two is top to bottom is you already know what your result is when you're doing top to bottom. When you're doing bottom to top, you don't quite know. Bottom to top works really well for like a what if, because you're like, what if 1800s, this was different, and you kind of walk it from there until you get to 2017 or 2130. And then when you're expanding mimicking, that can also be like that too, but it can also be like the endpoint, and you walk it back. Idolization can really go both ways. You can start from the beginning, and you can have good things happen and bad things happen, but mostly good things. What if this went right, and you kind of see where you end up. I kind of did a little bit of both, kind of met myself in the middle, you would say. Replication is really confusing when it comes to top to bottom or bottom to top, because you're kind of just asking yourself, do I want to have things the way they are now, but slightly different? And then, do we change recent history? Do we change far into the past? Do we start the way things were for America in the beginning, and then alter things along the way? But then that ends up becoming the what if kind of posture. So I know this video went on way too long, but hopefully I provided a reasonable amount of information and some kind of vague understanding of how these various different things work. I'd like you to go over them in your head, think them over to yourself, and kind of ask yourself, where do I want to start? Do I have the end point for what I want this nation to be, or like a middle point? Or do you just want to start somewhere and kind of just add things and throw things in until you get to somewhere else? And is this nation going to be entirely about your beliefs? Is it going to be the exact opposite? Is it going to be somewhere between where it's like, you're a liberal, but like your country has Republicans in it too, and you kind of like have elections and you debates and all that? It's all kinds of possibilities. I hopefully I didn't repeat myself too much. There's plenty of information. I hope this was a good video, and I guess I'm excited to make the next one and see where this all goes, and I hope to fulfill every single little thing the community needs me to do. So please tell me if I can do anything more. I'm not sure I can make this video any shorter besides cutting off these little parts where I explain things. Other than that, good luck, and thanks for watching the video that no one likely watched.